Meeting to order.
Okay.
Perfect. We do have regrets from Derek, who is sick tonight, and Tyler, who is, been at the hospital in Halifax with his son. I don't know if we all saw that email or not, just came out, so. He seems to be okay, so, but they're just heading home from Halifax now, so it's been a long day for them. So, let's move on to, approval of the agenda. Does anybody have anything to add? We do have one item under new business, which will be the golf tournament policy. Yes, and we do have an in-camera session as well after the mayor's report. Personnel issues. And we're still, it's right, golf tournament policy.
Positive vibes.
Yes.
Believe in yourself, Adam. I believe in you. We can do this.
Okay. All those then in favor of the agenda as added to or changed, I need a mover first. I'll move by Councilor Serena, Deputy Mayor Lutz, and all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And it's carried. That's our agenda. Approval of the minutes, April 22nd, 2025. Anybody know any errors or omissions? Who knows? No, okay, approve them as circulated, and let's move on now to the action items.
Didn't make it into it, kind of forgot about the.
Okay, but they're on the screen.
Can we make them a?
Yeah.
We can,
We will update the package so that you can go back in and look at that.
okay, Jennifer, do you want to highlight any of those?
I will just note that in the first completed one, so this was information that Derek was looking for that Lisa was able to get from King's Transit of Valley Waste on the percentage of their reserves compared to their operating budget based on the same FCIs that we use for the towns. And I will just note that we had planned to have a special council meeting tonight, potentially to look at the order at 109 Marsters. And I have that report has been sent to our solicitor to provide comment, and we didn't get the comment back before this evening. So it will come to the June 10th for discussion. But that's, I think everything else is pretty self-explanatory.
So any questions of any of those items? So you did reach out to, so fire chief was a level 1,
I
so
did,
that
and I
that is in
yeah.
progress. Yeah. Okay. We're done with that. Let's move on to number 5, golf tournament policy. So we just want to get your thoughts about this this evening. Jennifer and I talked about this, we talked about before, and we kind of did a little bit more on it today. So we get numerous requests to enter golf tournaments of various kinds in town or for organizations and that we're maybe somewhat involved with or attached to or whatever. We have typically we've sent 2 teams to the Appledome tournament every year in August, and we pay for those 2 teams to go in it. What we're wanting to consider, if we want to look at a policy that instead of paying the full shot for just those 2 teams for one tournament, and also we have gone in Grandview Manor one, I believe we did that last year as well, so 2 tournaments, that we would look at perhaps a few more tournaments, and we'd have a policy where those that were on the team would pay 50% of the cost, and the town would pay the other 50% of the cost. Some of the more notable ones, there's the Grand Manor one coming up. There's one for Greg Barb as a staff person at County Kings in Annapolis Royal for a long time. There would be the Appledome tournament, and the Wildcats golf tournament that we may want to enter teams as well. And the teams selection would be probably who's interested in going. And as you would offer the day.
So if it was any staff that were members of the team, we wouldn't require them to take a vacation day, but they would be required to pay the 50% to attend.
So we'll open that up for some discussion, some interest, and then we could, we need to create policy on it, kind of the wording around it and try to be maybe a little clearer on which kinds, if there's some that are acceptable or not acceptable as tournaments to enter. Maybe the idea of a K1 in Halifax may not be something we would do, but certainly.
You can do it whenever you want, man, do yourself.
So anyway, any thoughts? I know we have some golfers in the room, we have some non-golfers in the
Yes,
room,
we do.
so that's why we want to open it up to everybody. Counselor Serene.
So the whole purpose of the golf tournament is for charity, right?
They are all fundraisers for the organizations, and I think that would be a clear part of the policy, wouldn't it? That we would
Yes.
need to be,
It has to be charity. It
Yeah,
has to be charity,
Yeah.
no fund ones or anything like that. I agree with the 50-50 percentage. It's much better than that, because then it's like the town is donating as well. And then the counselors and everybody's paying, and then the town's matching the donation. And when it comes to teams, we'll just have to have like a rotation list. So like that way we don't have the same 4 or 5 people going to every tournament.
Considering that here's an absolute non-golfer, you will never get me on golf.
Make 4. Make 4.
yeah.
You would be surprised. I've heard lots of that from
Oh,
golf
no, I've
golfers.
tried a couple of times in my life and I had a psychologist tell me never to try again.
Well, I think that's where I'm going with my golf game too. Yeah.
Well, you can make fun of us and drive the cart. Yeah, so
Jennifer, Counselor Goddard.
The idea of a 50-50 split is fine in my eyes. But I do think we should be sponsoring 2 teams. Because we have 4 counselors there, and at least we make a team, but I think staff should have a team as well. So,
As much as we have a number of people that play golf, we don't always have a whole lot of success in getting people to play and fill the teams, even for 4 and sometimes for the 8 for sure. We're scrambling sometimes at the last.
If I'm off, I'll go, but if I'm not off, there's.
Yeah, or something happens with somebody and they cancel out 2 days before, and so it's maybe something to consider, but we should also be considering it may be tough enough to get 4 for them.
And if there's, sorry, I hope
Yeah.
it's okay to speak
Well,
up.
absolutely.
Even, if you're looking at numerous tournaments and folks are now also having to contribute 50%, you might not find that they're wanting to participate in every single one, just to kind of budget for what that looks like.
Absolutely. I was gonna make that comment as well, as there seems to be lots of interest up front when we put out for these tournaments, but when the day draws nearer, we seem to get a lot of other commitments that come up that you couldn't foresee. So I don't think we'll have a problem. What we normally do is put a call out and get everyone to submit their names. And then if we have too many, we sort of look at, did you do the last one or did you, and go from there. And then if you can't make it, you call the next person on the list. So I think that's an option. One other thing that we talked about for non-golfers is we're focusing right now, because this is what has come to the town for requests, is on the golf tournaments. But there may be other events that are not golf that come up, and then we could amend the policy if we see those types of things coming forward. But this was the obvious one to start with, since those are the ones we receive requests on.
So why don't, instead of making it a golf tournament policy, why don't we just make it a event? Or a charitable event policy, so that way it gets everybody.
Well, we have participated in a softball tournament before, a couple of times each year. We've had a team in that.
One day only.
I don't,
Do you know anybody that's looking for a guy to play softball?
well, when's that tournament? Is it a spring one or fall one? We already did it, didn't we?
Yes,
For Cedar School.
we've done a staff team in one for IWK
Okay.
for a Halloween tournament in the past for like team building,
Hmm.
but there could be other opportunities.
I used to, I played softball a lot when I was Second place in nationals, that's as far as we got.
And I can think.
It's not first, you're not first or last.
And then maybe the like physical activity ones, I mean, I know they don't do this anymore, but at one time the library used to host a trivia night fundraiser. So there were for to enter teams and that you paid to enter that, so that may be an example of something that could come up around, we could do. Okay. Everything,
In the past, when the town paid for it all, how much did they contribute? Like for all the, in the run of a year, what do we put in for like golf tournaments? Like I'm just saying, there also needs to be a max number.
Yes,
A dollar amount that for these things that we are going to say that has
so
to be.
that they're not always the same price. I think the Appledome one, is it $400?
I believe so. Top of my
Yeah,
head.
so that would be,
I think it ends up being 5 per team
yeah,
and then 400 or 500 for a whole sponsorship.
and we did a whole sponsor as well.
But I think that there's a rough number range for those that they're put through the criteria and maybe a budget amount. I think that you could develop a policy that could guide most decisions, and then if you've spent all of the budget, then you bring it back to council for consideration.
So if there's interest, then we'll kind of come back to you with the policy and then we can kick it around some more, see what it looks like in writing. Okay, we'll plan to do that then. Thank you for that. Let's move on to the department reports. And see the fire department report there from Chief Redden. Well, if there's any questions or comments that anybody can,
I guess we're not here, but again, the delay in time that does affect all of Berwick and that, again, we go back to the fire that was on Foster, when Aylesford's arriving before our own fire department up the road is arriving, that's a problem, so I don't know how we route it, do we have to go behind the fire department with traffic so that lane out front is open, that they can get those fire trucks out? I don't know, I'm just saying that this is the second time that it's been mentioned and we should have learned it a little bit after Foster that we gotta do something.
I don't think it's the trucks leaving the yard, it's the volunteers getting to
Okay.
I would assume.
Yep,
'cause I
that
think
would
that-
make sense, yes.
I feel that the signers would see the trucks and make way, like stop traffic and allow them out, but I can see where there would be an issue getting to the
Yeah, because
The
they're
department.
not.
Yeah.
I did sort of hear that probably the next couple of weeks, there will be stop and go traffic, but after that, it should peter out and they should be close to, maybe not completion, but that, controlled traffic. So if there is something we can do in the immediate, future, but hopefully that issue will sort itself out in the next few weeks.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure if it's more about, because I don't believe it's only the chiefs and deputy that would have lights to get through.
Yes,
Yeah.
my neighbor
Most-
two up, Bob's
Yeah,
90% there and he doesn't have lights in his truck.
right, so that's probably where the issue is there's no signal to the rest of traffic that you're a volunteer trying to get
Yeah, we've
to.
been trying to get the green light like Ontario and a bunch of other
Yeah.
provinces.
Though you do have a license plate,
Yeah, but it's hard to see.
yeah. Okay,
I think if we do have some idea that it is for sure happening the next 2 weeks, we could mention that to Luke and then he could advise Aylesford or Waterville
Yes.
that there could be this issue between
Yeah.
8 and 5 or whatever their daytime. I mean, they don't work, I don't think past 5 o'clock. I'm not sure what time they start. Council Clyde.
So one of my thoughts has been, since I moved back to Berwick and got used to having sirens all the time, was that one of the reasons the siren goes is so that I know to look when I'm driving for people with the volunteer plate and let them get through. But maybe, and like, so is there education around that? Is there something like, because there's nothing else. I mean, that to me was really the big reason why you would say, well, a siren is important.
Mhm.
Cause I've had people say, why did you bother? Like, you know,
Mhm.
in today's age, you can get a hold of every one of your fire department members without siren.
Mhm.
Why is it ringing? But I've always assumed it was to make the rest of us aware that we were supposed to be watching.
Yeah, it's pretty much it.
Well,
Just-
that's
Yeah.
probably not a bad idea. We could do some posts on that, you know, for the next few weeks. There's gonna be stop and go. Please watch for your volunteer firemen. That's probably the most important.
Yeah, if you hear the siren, watch for
Yeah.
them.
Please let them through and.
Yeah.
Yeah. Counselor Goddard. Counselor Smith.
This morning, the siren went off. While our walking group was just starting. And that became our discussion. For our walking group, and the consensus seems to be that the siren is important. It may be passé in some people's minds for certain aspects. But it's important so that the community knows that these people are out there, they're volunteering for us. And that siren has a big meaning, just.
Yeah.
It may bother some people at 4 a.m, but
Hmm.
that's the way it is.
So can we include that in the messaging as well? And can we ask the staff do some posting on some of that then?
Take a look.
Okay.
Now, it's only gonna hit the social media, but we
Well,
can-
sure, but
we can
it's
do-
a start, it's a help.
Yes, it
Yeah.
is, yeah.
So the only tricky piece is, you were saying about the license plate is, how do you know someone is a volunteer trying to get to
Well,
the fire department if the siren's going, you know?
Yeah.
And I.
They throw their four ways on and they should be pulling into the
Yeah, they're not allowed to
fire
drive
department. If they're
before.
not get the license plate, they get a ticket. Simple as that. That's where they'll be hitting.
You're not supposed to drive with your four ways on, you're not supposed to speed, it's against the law.
I didn't ask them to speed, I just asked them to put four ways on so they could get
I'm
through.
just.
Just the
like-
beauty-
yeah, well, I don't think. I don't think
Maybe
we can
it's
suggest
just
people
be
that you
aware.
can't be aware
Be
that they
aware.
could be coming. Look in your rearview mirror, like I say, the guy that's coming roaring up on your tail.
There's been times where
He's
we've
probably trying to get to the fire hall.
there's been times where we were at this intersection here and we couldn't get through. And Steve Palmer had to get out of his car and yell at the guys like, do you not hear the siren? Volunteer firefighters here, we're trying to get through.
Well, that could be another thing, if they wanted to send out to, you know, fire police or fire traffic.
Mhm.
And do something at the intersections, we could. Tell them that's okay by us,
Nope.
they felt that they needed
They needed
to
to.
interrupt the stop and to get the firemen through.
Mhm. Yeah.
If we're comfortable with a lot of that,
Yeah.
That's a safety issue too, and
It's
How
just
do you
getting
know?
the first person there. I think that's
Uh,
where this all comes down to, is getting
I got a
the
question.
people, the volunteers to the or the fire.
Yeah, because once the trucks are going, you know what to do. Right.
yeah. Counselor Serena.
In behind the Legion. Does that property connect with the fire hall property or is there a ditch or something in between there?
There's a ditch there.
Well, that one's
There's really no other route.
But good thinking. I'm just,
I think we have.
We got a couple of options, not,
yeah, it's something.
not 100%, but a couple of them may help. Okay, let's move on to community development, report. And Katie, any highlights for us?
Well, I was kind of reading through to see if there was one thing, but there's lots of great things happening. Happy to chat about some things I know. The weather is getting nicer. He last year opened the splash pad on June 19th. Weather pending, we're gonna try and open it a little bit earlier this year, looking at the first week in June. We're so coming up really quickly. We're opened our day camp registration. We're almost all completely full on that. We have all our staff ready. The Sports Hall of Fame event is coming up on June 14th as well. I'll be doing some questions.
The trail cleanup, it was always in the morning. I always took part with the walking or whatever, we did garbage, but they always did the cleanup first thing in the morning. And then the smaller grades went to the park. Some people cleaned up the day before, but anyway, they went there and the bigger kids always went and threw the brush and that from the trail. But now I see it's in the afternoon, only from 1 to 2:15.
Yeah, and I don't know if it's just for the school, are we not inviting volunteers to come? That was, the volunteers
Yes.
came in the morning and then
Yeah.
the school kids came when they could later. Clean up brush and things that we volunteers had taken care of, but
From my understanding, and I will just speak to what I'm aware of, is that that is specifically done with the school. I'm not sure that there's a community component to that, but I can certainly follow up with Jordan to get more information on it.
Yeah.
I know that that is involved, the school had requested that time, and that would be
Oh.
the best time of day to work with the students, and so that's why that time was selected for them. But I can certainly follow up to see if there's an opportunity for the community to also participate.
So one of their big jobs was to throw the brush on the truck.
Mhm.
So, but it meant that people had to get in there and cut the brush before they arrived. So if we're not gonna cut the brush, then there's not much.
I think they were gonna do a garbage.
Okay, well, that's-
I just remember so many of the grade eights that graduate saying this was their last opportunity to get back to Berwick and that, and they always felt that was. And showing the younger grades, this is what you get to do to get back before you move on to West Kings or CK. Always took a lot of pride in it. And everybody saw the students out, which then they took pride, and for a while, leaves didn't get raked down over as much as they used to, or just stuff like that. It was just nice to see, and that's what I've heard people saying. So that's the only reason.
So is Public Works part as well? Like, is there, they're planning to have the truck there to do any heavier things they find, or is it just a garbage bag?
So. In the past, Public Works has, all the students have brought their bags to one location and then Public Works picks them up. I can certainly clarify with
Yeah.
Jordan and maybe touch base to see if there's more opportunity to engage the community.
Yeah, cause we know, we did have a push on for volunteers to come and help. Yeah, Public Works was always there with the big truck, and that's when they loaded the brush on the truck and took it all away that was cut. We've done a lot of the cleanup for that, but it's not, we haven't finished it by any means, and we're at the
If we
point.
get that much further each year and you feel good about yourself and the
Yeah,
kids
but
feel
we're almost
good.
at the point where we need to start again.
Yeah.
Because brush keeps on growing. Anyway, that'd be good if we can verify that, and if there's needs to be a push to get volunteers there, then we need to get a notice out and get them council, the walking group, I think. You guys were involved 1 year as well, I
You know,
think.
because we left our garbage bags up, we retrieved a couple signs from down
Yeah.
off the trail that had come down.
Also, yeah, I'll. follow
Okay.
up, actually.
Great, thank you. Councilor Goddard?
Carbon natural resources and renewables, followed up regarding potential leasing or purchasing of Heritage Station Park.
Yes, so, yes. So. I would say it was 2023, so that was several years ago now. While we were exploring options for what could happen with the boxcars at the trailhead. At that time, I had reached out to DNR as they own the property and we just have, a letter of authority to operate on that. So I had reached out at that time to find out what types of activities or what things we could develop on that property. At that time, they were not aware that the boxcars were there, so then it began a whole new conversation around who owns the property, what we have the ability to do there, those types of discussions. And so at that point, we had explored as staff and around the council table, about discussions on if we could turn that into a business or what we could operate there. So then became the discussion of rezoning the property, all those types of things. So in having that conversation with DNR, the best way to move forward and be able to have the opportunity to make those decisions with either to lease the property or to own the property. So at that time, we discussed with them, and I believe at that point that it wasn't the intention to move forward with the purchase, but to explore what that would look like. So at that time, we had discussed looking at having an appraisal and a survey done of the property, because what we would be leasing or purchasing wouldn't be the corridor, the trail itself, it would just be the trailhead. So at that time, the conversation at that point had kind of just dwindled, because we were operating as we were installed the deck and we were just going along. We did, Jennifer from DNR reached out to me about a week and a half ago, wanted to follow up on any decisions that staff or council have made, and wanted to just see where we were at in the process. So I followed up with her and had that discussion among staff at the town hall. We were looking at having what the cost of a survey and an appraisal would be. DNR has expressed that they would be willing to sell the property, to the town, which is what I thought was somewhat shocking, because it is hard, to have, to be presented with the opportunity to do that. So at this point, we're kind of just exploring what that might even look like, what it would cost, and options to present to council, what the possibilities could be. Please,
Yeah.
if there's
No, that's-
any other,
So we're just getting quotes on that appraisal and the survey, and depending on what that cost is, we'll get them done and bring back some options for council's consideration.
and they, DNR did express that they would be selling the property at the appraised value, which we don't know what that would be at this point. And leasing the property, it would be a 5%, which would be a 5% annual payment, 5% of the appraised value.
So they're actually willing to sell
Yes.
the trailhead piece that was designated as trail.
Have it in writing.
Not the piece that's the trail, it would cut off before the trail.
Yeah, so we would have the trailhead, they would still own, the 2.2 would still be under
Yeah,
the.
yeah, I know,
Letter
but the,
for it.
the agreement was when it was assumed, when it wasn't actually purchased from Grandstand Trail, who got it from DNR,
Mhm.
was it a 25-meter strip would be available for a continuous trail.
Mhm.
And in selected areas in which there would be a section available as trailhead. So there are official trailheads, pretty much every community all through the area. So to think that they were gonna actually give up the trailhead, that means if they're selling it, this, you know, the sign and all the, like the parking, it could go away and there would be no trailhead if the owner of the property did something else with it. Or did they talk about a condition that it stays as a trailhead and we become the owner?
That has not been discussed at this point.
The other question I think is, are they only considering selling to
To the
someone
town.
like up to the town?
Yes.
Like they
I-
would not sell to anyone else?
In
Well,
initial
that's-
conversations, and we've kind of spoken back and forth over, and I think it was. I think that she was also surprised that when she brought this, up, that they were willing to sell, but this is after knowing that we have invested money in placing the boxcars there. And the intention moving forward is to make that a trailhead and a community space, so I think that that contributed to the fact, that they were willing to consider selling to us.
And I think to the question you asked, again, we're not at that point where we know of conditions, because they absolutely could say that we'll sell this, but it must remain part of the trail.
Hmm.
But you would have more control over what went
Yeah.
on it as long as it remains open for the trail. So I think there's still a lot of questions to be
Preliminary
answered.
discussions.
Katie just wanted to make sure that you're aware that discussions have
Hmm.
resumed, and we're trying to get all that additional information to present back to council.
Yeah, I think we should be, I'm sure that there are people's understanding has evolved since the agreement was done in, probably from 270, 208, is when it all started. Maybe we need. Like, I'm shocked that she doesn't know that the boxcars were part of that. It was the premier cabinet that agreed to that. The ministries were all told, and so were all the local people, Department of Transportation, DNR, they all knew it was coming. They invested thousands of dollars to get from there. So somebody in that department knew, she doesn't, like, that's how I can understand that, that's what happens, but,
And so I just want, there was a gentleman, and I'm drawing a blank on his name, but I believe you know who it is, worked for DNR.
Dana Orr was a supervisor in charge at one time that was part of all
And
that.
he lived locally,
Yeah.
and he was actually the gentleman who I initially spoke to, and he wasn't even aware that they were here. So
Middleton has, anyway, that's.
that's what I was.
I can tell you, I've did a lot of work with DNR over the years about this stuff, and historically, they never wanted it, I can tell you that, they did not want that property, it's a huge problem, they already have thousands and thousands of acres of crown land they can't manage. They did not want an abandoned rail line, of which was required to become a trail, so, you know, what they've done is really. As much as that's the only department that fit to have that piece of property, because they can manage land, that's the only one that does. Anyway, they've done everything in their power to to move away from having any responsibility. That's why millions of dollars have been put in by municipalities and trail groups into developing a trail there that technically is the province's, on Providence property. Like, it's such an archaic approach to it. Anyway, I'm not gonna get out of that soapbox, but I was halfway there, what did I? Pull me down, you gonna pull me off?
So, I was
Anyway,
enjoying it.
let's- It went on for.
Oh, your dad's cat this year.
Yeah.
Shut that off there. Okay. Anyway, so I think we just have to be careful of what their responsibility is and what they might be trying to unload on us. That we shouldn't go too far on something that is actually theirs and their responsibility. So I just caution us for that as we go forward, that's all. And if we could find that agreement, maybe I'll dig around and see if I can in some of my old files.
The letter of authority?
Well, that's a letter of authority, so it should indicate, the letter of authority would indicate the size of the trailhead.
We do know that,
Yeah,
but we
okay.
have to have a survey done for the official appraisal. And
Right.
if we buy it, so
Yeah.
we know the approximate size.
So-
100 by.
Yeah, okay, so. Can't see how they can sell
you
that.
think-
So-
Well, it would be similar, I believe, what they did in Middleton with the museum, so that piece of trailhead was exactly set up like ours is out here.
Mhm.
And the province identified where the property line would be for a long time, and they paid a lease based on the assessed value. And then they had an official survey and consolidation of two parcels to make it one parcel, and they purchased it. But left the railway corridor still there for it to run through, so they didn't purchase that portion.
Anyway,
And I
Yeah.
think the reason that the conversation had come about it initially is not that we were out there seeking this information. It was more so presented as an opportunity to work within what we were planning on that site. So
Mm.
obviously, this is the box fairs, these are the concepts and ideas we had. And under the current letter of authority, we wouldn't have the ability to do some of the things that we'd be able to do if we owned the property. And I think that that's kind of the conversation, where the conversation started. But I'll certainly keep, I know,
I did,
this is initial conversations, and I really did just kind of want to inform council that it was brought back to our attention and we're working through, but no decisions are going to be made or nothing will be moving forward without informing you.
so a number of trail groups, I'll just share this one last thing, this is how bizarre it can get. A number of trail groups across down the line has had challenges working and building the trail and doing it. A number have said, and one said, well, let's give DNR back the letter of authority, so we don't want to be involved anymore. It's your property,
Mhm.
you make a trail, you look after it, you pay for the maintenance, you look after the trailhead, it's yours, it's your property. But we'll give you the investment we put into it, because we can't, just millions of dollars in grading and, but you can have it. And see what they do.
That's a great idea.
It's,
Well,
they blew up in Digby County when it happened. Anyway, I won't go any further. But it's their property. We have a lease arrangement with it. Only so we can develop it on their behalf. How bizarre is that? Anyway. Be careful what we get into. Can we move on?
We can.
I wish you guys would stop
We've got
doing this.
the power
We're trying to vote through this stuff.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions of Katie?
Are all the positions filled for the summer?
We actually, at this point, are looking for one parks maintenance.
Okay, that's what I
staff.
thought, that was my only thing.
Yes, we had hired all the positions, and a gentleman who had accepted the position had reached out last week to indicate that they have found employment elsewhere.
Great.
So we are looking, I will say, there's a bit of misconception about the positions themselves, so just to clarify in case you guys are getting any questions. It used to be more student-based grant funding, so you'd have to be returning to school in the fall. That's not the case with the grants that we're receiving now. So they are youth seasonal positions. So the only requirement for the position at this point would be that you're between the ages of 15 and 30. And you can apply or you can work for those. So you do not need to be returning to school in the fall or have attended school prior to. So this is really open to, and it's exciting that at 29, we're still considered youth, but. But
That's what I was just.
like that is, so if folks know anyone in the community who's looking for some seasonal work, please certainly encourage them to reach out and apply.
Katie, I had two, good to see the business promotion thing coming, that was, because I know there was saying anxiety whether we should or shouldn't do it based on other feedback, so. Yeah, so maybe we can even build on that and do some regular promotion things. We've got a lot of unique businesses that people come specifically to, you know, you consider Bargain Harlow's, you consider Leeton's, you consider Pies Plus, like they come here because you can't get that stuff anywhere else. It's not as if you, so it'd be nice to, you know, we could look at some other kinds of promotions. I think that's great. The other one I wanted to comment on was we had a major injury, pickleball the other day. And poor fellow is still in the hospital with busted up hips and femurs and stuff. Should we, I don't know if there's any liability issues or concerns we have, but would it be even nice to send them a card on behalf of the town or do something to say,
We could, though he's not the first.
is that the
injury
first
we've
injury you've
had.
had?
We've
No,
had-
Oh, okay. First one I heard up to that serious.
And I think the ball fields over the years, how many ran into the
Yeah,
bench.
hockey
that
rink.
was-
The hockey rink, we do it. If someone gets a puck in the face, it'll all get game or gets, we do something like that. That's what kind of. Anyway,
Yeah.
maybe it's not appropriate if we've had so many, we'd be
We can
behind.
speak with the program leader as well. They might
Yeah,
be able to
that would be a good idea.
Okay,
No, unfortunate.
yeah, really. Yeah.
I don't think we've had one to that extent,
Mm.
but we have had an ambulance called before for an
Just a
event.
month ago.
Yeah, and we do complete all internal incidents and Jordan goes and talks to them and follow up, but
Oh,
that
okay.
might be a nice thing.
Oh,
to do
so
as well.
someone has, Jordan followed up with, probably not with him yet. He's still in the hospital.
Not with him, no.
Yeah.
Not specifically, but
Okay.
was there during the event. We had staff present, and engaged in it, but we found out through Facebook, and kind of being updated on his status.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But yeah, we'll have that discussion and it's a great idea.
Program leader.
Hmm,
Doesn't
Great.
mean we shouldn't, but maybe it's a go forward thing.
Mhm.
yeah, good.
And hope there's no.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, are we able to move on then? Public Works, Aaron?
I mean, I'll leave it open for questions. One thing that's not in this report that I'll just comment on is over the past few weeks, we have had some odor from the sewer treatment plant, which I'm sure we're all familiar with. There's multiple contributing factors to that. The first one is nature itself. I mean, we're in what's called the spring turn. The spring turn is where your water body moves from stable winter conditions to stable summer conditions. When that happens, your pond essentially flips. So our style of sewer treatment plant is essentially 3 ponds, each which flip in the spring and they flip again in the fall. The fall turn typically doesn't have much of an odor. The spring turn always has some degree of odor. Another contributing factor is, of course, the industry load. Eden Valley's put in considerable investment as far as equipment to improve the quality of the effluent they're sending to our plant. But they're still optimizing their processes, so it's not quite working the way it should yet. Which we had hoped it would be working, prior to the spring. The third contributing factor is we've had mechanical issues with our blowers. The blowers are the equipment that supplies air to the lagoons. We think we've worked through a lot of those kinks and I'm gonna touch wood, we think we're good for the next 6 months or so. And we're conscious of our spend. These are pieces of equipment that we're replacing in the fall as a major capital investment. If you're replacing your car in 6 months, you don't want to spend too much on maintenance on your car. And that's really where we're at with blowers. We're trying to keep them operational without investing too much. An example of too much, we could use a new VFD, something called a variable frequency drive. If we had that, a lot of our issues would go away. That would be about a $20,000 purchase. $20,000 to limp through 6 months doesn't really make sense. So again, we're trying our best to avoid that. The spring turn should be pretty much complete. And we're not the only community that's had some degree of odor. So Berwick, of course, I think everyone's aware of New Minas. Port Williams has a minor flip. Wolfville experienced some odor with their spring turn. Hants Border is still going through a spring turn at the moment too. So we're not the only community to have it. It is common, unfortunately. And as the days continue to get warmer and the nights stay warmer, the flip will be finished. So a magic number is really about 10 degrees Celsius. We need stable nighttime temperatures about 10 degrees Celsius for the flip to be finished. So. Another thing I'll just kind of highlight is brush cleanup is finished. We had about 8 full bins. We anticipate probably another 2 bins before it actually finishes. You know, people tend to lag behind what we put for timelines sometimes. And as we finish that, our priority, of course, right now is mowing and supporting the parks maintenance efforts. Very quickly, we're moving into road maintenance, so line painting and paving and patching will be coming very soon. With that, I'll turn it to questions.
Good, Deputy Mayor.
I'm back to the grate. How long are we gonna wait for these grates? Like I thought it was a major safety issue before, and every time I come to another monthly meeting and they're not installed.
Yeah.
It's taking my irritation factor. I mean, if this is the thing and this is the person that was selected, then we want the job done.
Yeah.
It's a
Been
safety
going
issue.
on a
It
very
is going on and I don't, you know, if something happened because of this, it would.
Yeah, so I had actually a discussion this afternoon with my predecessor about this and, you know, we're now waiting on that contractor to, complete those grades. And now the boxcar doors as well.
Yes, I know, and that's what I was gonna say, before you get the boxcar doors,
Yeah.
we want these installed.
Mhm.
Because that's not a safety issue as it's not been opened yet, where this is a safety issue, that's my only concern, it's a
So-
safety issue.
Tim has a very good relationship with this contractor.
Yes.
He was gonna call him today, and express concern over the timing. And hopefully I can have an update before the end of the week.
That's great.
Yeah, I can send an update once we know it, probably through Jen, if that would be appropriate. Yeah, and I was looking at Katie because I know Katie spoke to that contractor today
Yeah.
about the box cars, and it is something we need to be mindful of, because I'm sure we don't want to wait a year to get those doors working.
And when I had discussed, when I reached out to him today regarding that project, he said he was finishing up an existing project for the town at the moment. And
Okay.
once that is complete, he will be able to move.
And this is the only other project, to my knowledge at least, that's.
That would be wonderful.
Hmm.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions?
We'll get an update and we'll get an email out.
Aaron, I want to comment on the emails that you sent out responding to the sewer, at least the 3 I'm aware of, and very well done with those. And I think what people appreciate most is that this isn't just another year, the same old, here we go again, nothing's happening, cross our fingers and hope it doesn't get bad anymore. But we're actually working on it and doing something, and we have, you know, we can identify, and I think that's the best response we've had in a long time around this issue, and I think it's good on councils that we're making this commitment to get this stuff done, and we can tell people that. And people, I think, are quite accepting of the idea that we are gonna we're gonna get it done. It's not just another year of hoping that, trying a little bit of something and hoping it goes. So the major effort's on, and we keep reminding them of that. Your emails were really good, and I had some good feedback from them about understanding the response and where we are, so, yeah.
3 years working with you minus, improved my skill at writing super really. But no, people don't like emails like that or concerns like that getting brushed off.
Mhm.
And it's something we need to take serious.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I appreciate that.
Okay, thank you. Finance, Lisa?
Alright, so it's pretty much the same updates on the same items. So I guess I'll open it up for any questions that council may have.
Can you explain that cybersecurity penetration test?
Sure. So the MEUs, which are part of the MMEUA, have collectively got together to conduct a cybersecurity penetration test this fall. So essentially it's a third party that's been procured. They're going to essentially test the cybersecurity of both the utility and the town. and identify areas of risk that the town can then work to mitigate and close those gaps. So it's extremely important and pressing, as we've noticed, our counterparts in the County of Kings, which went through their cyber attack within the last couple of years, and then NSPI as well. So we're trying to be proactive in identifying any potential risks that we may have. And make sure that we're working to implement solutions to close those risks and move forward from there.
Good, thank you.
You're welcome.
Deputy Mayor.
Just when is the closing date for the Dale turbine thing? I know we have 5 interested, but when is the closing date? I believe we've changed that a couple times,
We
but,
do, yes. So we do keep pushing it out. At present, it's June 30th.
okay, thank you.
Lisa, do we have any idea the HST recovery potential there as to?
The analysis that our consultant had done originally, we believe it's around 80,000. There is a potential for more, or less. I guess right now it depends on how invoices are allocated, what invoices are coming into Berwick. The 80,000 was based on analysis when the Solar Garden was commissioned, but there's been substantial changes after that, so. We're hoping at minimum 80,
Okay.
Yeah.
Cross the fingers on that.
yeah,
And you had 2 finance court possibilities then?
yeah.
We hope to.
So we're just finalizing reference checks this week, and the goal is to have an offer out on Friday.
Okay,
Yeah,
good.
so we're very excited. We actually had excellent candidates this round. So we're really pleased with the quality and experience, and very excited about both individuals, so,
Mhm.
yeah.
Good.
Just stay tuned, I hope.
Hope that works out well.
Yeah.
Any other questions for? Jay Boyd. Oh, sorry.
I guess, are we allowed to talk about the QP collective bargaining continues? How close are we? Or we would say close, not close? So that was the other thing I didn't know. Great, I'll wait till later on. Sounds good.
Okay, thank you.
We'll provide an update.
I guess the same as everyone else, is the report is there and I can take any questions. This wasn't in my report, but it was in Aaron's, and I know it was a team effort, but if you haven't seen the front entry upgrades, I encourage you to stop in and take a look. It's amazing how large the space feels now. And we were just kind of tweaking some of the electrical things for the doors to properly open, but once we have all that completed, we'll do some promotion out about the changes, but we're just still tweaking some of that, so. I'm taking Aaron's thunder, but it is complete for the most part, so
98%.
yeah, so take a look and
Northern more.
it started.
Council Patrick.
So Roger gave me a personal tour last night after the accessibility committee and meeting, and I'm really impressed with how the space feels. In fact, that you didn't need to change the footprint. And I think it's going to work much better. Also, I understand that there's an ability outside of work hours to lock the door between the entry and there, so that, you know, like from remotely, like so that the
Oh, on a
yeah,
timer?
on a
I
timer.
believe, I think there's some,
Yeah,
that's some of the
because-
tweaks that are being.
Yeah, that was
Yeah.
one of them, which really improves security, et cetera.
Mhm.
That sense of safety, but yes, and it looks like it will be a better space to work in.
Yeah.
So I think it'll be really good.
Yeah, Roger seems really pleased with it. I'm not sure if he's decided on what chair to use. When I come in, he was on the one closest to the door, and 2 hours later, I go by, he's on the other one. I said, which one do you like the best, Roger? You're just doing this for break up the day or what? Like,
Yeah.
I think he plans to sit at the one closest to the door, that's.
Yeah,
that seems to be
it's his
plan.
workstation.
You come back in there,
Everyone is
Mike, could be in your office again. Sorry, I was here for a couple months. I took a wrong chair.
Yeah, back in the.
Sorry to steal your thunder, but I
Oh,
wanted
that's-
to highlight that, and if there is any questions on any of the other information in my report, I can answer that.
Any questions then for?
Am I too far down? I hope not. I was just down to Eden Valley, the tour, where you guys did that. How did that go? How did they take the news?
So we're still having some discussions. They are looking at their options. They appreciate the information we've provided and also a long-term projection of what those costs might look like. I think they want to run some of their own numbers. We will or have billed them for the new rate for the first quarter or first month. Monthly, and they've been, I like it. So we're good on that respect, but we're still having conversations and trying to have regular meetings. We have another one scheduled in August just to keep the communication going and work together.
Wonderful.
I think what was nice, they asked for some help from our staff and Aaron was
Oh,
able to
yeah.
accommodate them, and I think
That's
that's
right.
kind of a nice olive branch or a nice part of the relationship where we can do things to support them and, yeah.
Yeah.
They appreciate that part. Alrighty, anything else? Okay, let's move on then to the committee reports, so. First up is area. So I was a little tardy in getting the April 30th one done, but I was really early on getting the second one done, the second one today, so I think that makes up for tardiness. So, just a couple of highlights, I guess, from those meetings. We have pretty much finalized the loan agreement with Riverport, which they owed us areas some significant money from services provided, and so it was a concern that they may not pay. So it's been quite a bit of time and effort to get a loan agreement with them, and it's on track to be recovered over the next number of years as long as they continue to exist, and see what happens there. We've had some regular budget updates recently, and it appears we're on track for possibly a surplus of $182,000, which is better than where we thought we may have been a number of months ago. The Potentia agreement, which was the expansion of the wind farm, has been kind of this on and off thing the last number of months they are now back at the table wanting to have a second.
It was in camera, so just high level.
Yeah, so
update.
with a firm to expand the wind farm, now we're looking at that possible expansion continuing, but also what's really perhaps more optimistic is to look at some other companies and that can provide wind power, may not be on the Ours House site. So our general manager is doing a lot of exploration around that, which may turn out to be even a better position than where we were with that company. And we hope we're finally getting to the finalization of the solar gardens issues and numbers. Time will tell on that one. So I'm kind of combining the two meetings here. We did have a meeting with the Minister of Energy, and we think it went very positively based on the discussion back and forth with he and the staff and the people that were there. We have not heard anything back from them yet, so our plan now is to do the thank you for the meeting, Minister, and talk about some follow-ups and things we can do from there. So that's the direction that we're going to follow up on in the next little bit to see if we can get a better response on that. And the strategic plan, the consultants have pretty much finished with the strategic plan. They've provided us a draft. They were looking at any additional tweaks to the plan that we did, and now moving forward on resourcing it and looking at what we need and how we move forward to get things moving that. And so in our June meeting, we hope to have a draft of the resourcing document from general manager from Ray, and the board will kick that around. Any questions on that? Jennifer or Justin, anything on this there?
Oh, you hit pretty much everything I could remember.
Okay.
Um,
Any questions? No, okay, let's move on to accessibility. Let's find that.
Yes, so we met last night, good meeting, good turnout of, committee members, to the meeting as well, yes.
but you have to eat.
Nothing,
Oh, the different one.
no, that's the diversity committee, we'll get to that. We don't eat at the access.
Oh, right. My mistake. I apologize.
Not a bad idea. So I've sort of just, I did this very quickly, which means it's likely got a lot more words in it than it really needs to sort of tell you what we did, but we spent a fair bit of time sort of doing some general discussion about accessibility issues and really having an opportunity to look at some things that perhaps don't come up as issues right off the bat. And so I've mentioned some of the things that people have recognized as issues that may not appear in building code or other places where you'd expect it to appear. Then obviously we have been thinking about how we're going to move forward with the diversity, equity and inclusion work that needs to be done. And Taylor and Jordan, I think, have a good handle on some ideas of how we can really engage the community. And we're looking for community members who are interested in the area or feel they have something to say, not necessarily someone who is not necessarily only members of diverse committees, diverse communities. So, but recognizing that for people to participate in these kinds of work, they likely have to feel like they're going to be very welcome. And so the way we'll handle that, there's an intention that if there's any issues with childcare or transportation to participate in this work, that we'll try to help out with that as well. Another very important thing that's coming up really quickly is the Berwick Core network work, yes, that sounds like phase 2, which is a follow-up of work that was done before this council was formed. So I don't know all that much about it. It's being the group that's been leading it with Cycle Nova Scotia, but it's not just about bicycles and getting around on bicycles. It's really about a way of supporting active transportation and making sure that the community's the design within the community facilitates that safely. We've heard lots of issues. I heard a number of issues, I should say. And again, last night, discussions of people who have been injured because bicycles use sidewalks, and that whole issue is a big concern. But we recognize as well that many people don't feel safe riding on the road because they're not designed very well, and people don't react to bicycles the way they really should, like give them the space that legally they're allowed to have and stuff like that. And so this is a big issue. There are a number of stakeholder sessions coming up next week. There's an basically all day session on June 5th at the library, broken up into 2 parts, morning session and an afternoon session that people can attend, but the invite should go out quickly because they want our RSVPs on attendance at that.
They just went to staff.
Oh,
this morning.
Yeah, so we need to get it,
Okay.
beyond the staff,
Okay.
because I saw it today. And then there will be pop-up sessions on Friday night, 6 from 5:30 to 8:30 in Rainforth Park for anyone to just pop in and, see what the plan is and have discussions. There will also be an opportunity and one on Saturday, June 7th here at the library from 10 in the morning till 1 in the afternoon. There's also going to be opportunities to provide feedback online, and that information should also be out, and we'll make sure that gets out so that they will be presenting potential plans of, ways to manage various kinds of traffic, active transportation traffic, and opportunities to sort of respond to what you see and explanations of what it all means. But I don't even understand exactly what all of that. I don't think anyone until you actually sit down and talk to them, but I think this is important, and it's important from an accessibility position as well. And finally, Access Awareness Week is this week. We were going to do a flag raising. We won't be because the flag isn't here. So there is information available on access and from the aspect of accessibility. We talked about an accessibility report card, which is part of our accessibility report. And it's lovely. We saw a very lovely report card that's very clear and very understandable and easy to set up from the municipality of Richmond. And so we've decided that we will adopt the format, obviously not their report card. And then finally, we did have a brief discussion about an issue that's been moved forward to the Berwick Electric Commission about a very dark intersection, Margison and Maple, and requests that a light be considered there. And I think this has been a question that's been brought forward a couple times. So that's
Already.
it's gone.
I also got the request through a resident, and Joey was given the information this morning to go at it.
Yeah, and Roger did a formal request as well. And
Okay,
we're done, yeah.
Just
Yes,
one-
questions?
No, just a comment that they're delayed. It just seems silly to me that we'd have an intersection without a light.
No, it's residential. And not the way residential streetlights go, not every intersection necessarily has a light right there.
Yeah.
And so,
It seems silly to me, like, because it's the intersections, that's where most of the accidents and danger is,
Yes.
right? So I think every intersection should have a street light, at least one.
So we're getting it needs to be assessed at night.
Mhm.
When it's dark, but also we need to determine whether the poles are power poles or utility poles, so other utilities, and what's required for putting the light up. So BEC is giving a quote on what the cost would be. Most of it is probably staff time, not too expensive. And this is just a case of maybe like every other pole, and it's not on the same side as the sidewalk. So that could be another reason why it wasn't identified originally when lights were put in, because it's not on the same side as where the sidewalks are. So we have received the request. It did come in a few times to previous staff, and it fell through a changeover. So we have made sure that it's been passed on to Berwick Electric. They're getting us a quote to determine if it's something we can action right away, or if it's something that we need to take to Berwick Electric Commission for approval.
Great, thank you, Jen.
yeah, it's just an anomaly.
Yeah.
Nothing there.
I know we talked about biking groups and that in there early on. Have we looked into the school, how many bikers they have? Just be nice to know those. I mean, I watch out for all bikers, but people are usually better with children watching out for those bikers. So I'm just saying, it'd be nice to know if we had that number. I know there used to be a good 35 when my kids went there. It's not that long ago.
When Nick and Taylor was there, those racks were full.
I was just gonna say, and you see them leaning up beside that.
If you looked at the plan that's being proposed, there's definitely a consideration of the importance of that particular corridor. Yeah, that street, that's definitely been identified. I have no idea the number, but I would assume that it's high.
Okay, I just thought Taylor could make a call, have good connections, 'cause you
Well,
look
I-
at, count the bikes.
Yeah.
Just, just a rough idea, I mean,
I
I
see.
don't see it
They
going
may
down.
know, because they've been working with the town for a while, so but that's a good question.
Any other questions on this one? All right, let's move on to the audit committee report. Councillor Jameson's report is there. He is not here, but sure, at least I could answer any of the questions that may arise on that.
The comment, I was there, was a great meeting, it's a great meeting, they could answer a lot of questions for us. It's looks like a very great organization we're gonna be working with moving forward.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be quite a difference than what we're used to.
Yes,
Is it?
positive.
Oh, that's good here. Yeah, great. No other questions? Let's move along then. And it's our University Kings.
So
can answer
now,
this question
yes,
right off the
so
bat.
unfortunately, the answer to your food question,
Yeah, I was too early.
this time we just had pizza.
Uh,
Okay,
Just pizza?
Just I like pizza.
Italian.
actually, and some garlic bread, garlic fingers or whatever they're called. And it was delicious. There's just a few things in there that I've mentioned this time. I guess a date to remember, August 24th from 10 to 4, the Kentville Multicultural Festival. I guess it's a really good celebration of diversity with good food and art and music. And if it's rainy on that date, this year they've planned a rain date for September 9th. In the past, they haven't, and it's sort of been caught in situations where it's an outdoor event. I've listed the May observation days as they sort of picked out as the ones that were of important highlight. One of the other things on our last meeting was on May 5th, which is Red Dress Day, and they had a really wonderful display with a lot of information of red dresses, etc. The Moose Hide campaign was something else that's interested in. So it's a grassroots led organization aimed at ending violence against women and children. It's largely men. It's basically the people who belong to the movement. And we continue
Their
to,
words,
yeah,
just, I were one of them.
oh, okay.
And the purpose behind it is for men to let other men know that violence against women is not acceptable. And that's what it's
Mhm.
basically aimed at.
Thank you. And as always, we've been working through their work plan. And we all had the chance to experience doing this in a circle process with a talking stick that really facilitated the conversation. And yeah, that was a good experience. Any questions?
No? Okay, the interim IMSA group, and Justin, thank you for doing this.
I was kind of rushed. I was like 9 o'clock at night, or it was later in the day. And I was, all said something inappropriate. I was just, doing renovations. Yeah, but, yeah, it's a good meeting. Had a lot of concerns that I had put to rest. Auto waste, we are no longer, we actually have a place in Port Hawkesbury that are paying us to take it for us. So that was pretty cool. And they just started the process of chewing up the bio waste material, so like wood and stuff like that, to send to them. They purchased a new loader. It is an electric one, that can be hooked up, and they claim it's perfect for their small area.
I don't think they purchased the EV one yet.
Oh,
The new loader was a regular loader, and now they're looking at an EV for their smaller loader that they also need to replace. And so once they get the quotes on that one, then they will consider if it fits within budget for the EV, but they're definitely looking at changing over.
And then they had the compost giveaway was successful. They had a whole bunch of people show up and just like every year, people were fighting for bags of compost. So, and they also participated in the Kentville Home Show, which was a great success, putting out lots of education, all that stuff. King's Transit Authority, they're at full staffing levels. So they got all their drivers, all that stuff. And their new fast tracking software, it's been implemented. There's been some temporary issues, but the staff is going through it and the writers are getting the information they need. Bus replacements, they're looking at all options. Like they're not just looking at electric, they're even looking at a micro transit system. I thought that was kind of interesting myself, where you could have a couple of electric buses just in your downtown core that would take you to where you would go from town to town to town to town to town, where the electric buses just wouldn't be feasible. So yeah, I thought that was a great idea. And then ridership's up, and it's been continually going up year over year, so you're obviously doing something right there. We had an in-camera session and I can't talk about it.
Well, I really like the concept of the microbus within the communities, and that would actually have a positive effect on our roadways, I would think.
Well, they're lighter buses, there wouldn't be as much damage to the road, yeah.
Absolutely. So I believe Wolfville is one of the communities that's testing the concept, and then they'll look at whether it's something they can deploy in other areas, but I believe they got some money for a micro transit test. So they're doing the pilot and then they'll
Hear from there, I think. So I'm assuming from the way you spoke that the microbuses would potentially be electric.
Potentially be, yeah, because they're looking at hybrids, clean diesel, hydrogen. They're looking at a whole bunch of different stuff, and they're just looking for what would be the best value for money. And well, right, and we're still gonna look at being more ecological, but where the main thing is value for money, and we won't have to train our guys or get new technicians and all that stuff if we just keep the diesel buses, right? So there's pros and cons to both, in my opinion. Just have to wait until we see what they come back with.
They were looking at a much larger core of electric buses for the fleet. And as they started to look into it, there's the challenges with electric buses, especially with the geography that we have. And more recently, conversations with Halifax. Halifax just added 60 buses, electric buses to their fleet, and of which only 3 of them are on the road. They ran the buses for a variety of different reasons with that. So it's caused the pause and the thought to look at, maybe we don't need to buy, I don't know what the number was, 30 electric.
For us.
Well, what were they at?
Oh, no, we're looking at 6.
Six electric buses, whatever.
We don't have
And-
30 in
No,
the
no,
fleet.
that's right. But to look at a combination of and just hold back on the purchase of these.
Yeah.
You know, so makes good sense. Okay, we ready to move on? Now I see that the Kings Point to Point. Chris, do you have there's no,
Next month I'll have a fairly extensive report. There's a lot of things happening right around now. And makes it difficult to report on.
okay. Okay, so no report on that, and the next one then would be Planning Advisory Committee.
Police service.
And we do not have a report here from Planning Advisory Committee. Did we have a meeting?
We did, Counselor Walsh was the chair of
Mm,
that meeting.
Right, okay.
Right.
Didn't provide the report?
I'm good,
because
but from
you were,
but I
right,
did
yeah.
not, yeah.
So that was the meeting where we discussed the options for the restricted residential.
Right,
So a lot of that has been reported back through committee or the council meeting where council gave direction to planning staff to update the NPS documents with those 2 zones. I think that was the high.
That's the report. I
The
think.
report,
That's
yeah.
the report,
Yeah.
yeah. Thanks, Jen. Okay, so now we can move on to the police services advisory.
There, it's just me again. All right, so, we had the RCMP update, there's 545 patrols. Yeah, averaging 8.9 patrols per day here in town. I think that's pretty much the sweet spot between 8 and 10. We can get a lot of positive feedback from the people in town saying that they're seeing the police all over the place and all that stuff. So I think that's a sweet spot. We discussed the off vehicle on public street and roads Trails Act by DNR. They're gonna come and give us a briefing on how we could possibly become included in that. So that's date is to be determined. Bruce is waiting for finalization on his position note taking. Should be next meeting or oath taking. So everybody on the police board has to take an oath, so we're gonna have to do that. We've come to terms that all acts of vandalism will be reported to the RCMP. Not necessarily meaning we're gonna charge people, but it's just to keep a record and to let them know that things are happening in town that they should be aware of. Update on security cameras installed at Fair Place, and yeah. Privacy and surveillance was discussed, because the neighbors were concerned with the cameras. But I don't believe any of them are pointing in anybody's backyard. I can't remember.
No, I think it was a comment that Chris made about just how people might feel about cameras in public spaces. So as we deploy more cameras, just be considerate of that. And currently, all of our cameras outside of Carroll's Place, although it is a town facility, building more so, our other facilities where we're putting cameras are more focused on the building security than large public spaces. So as we get those implemented, the next phase will be looking at whether there's an area in Centennial Park that you want to look at, and then we'll consider those privacy issues at that time.
All right, and then verbal harassment was brought up near the basketball courts. Lady was, it was a lady.
I think so, and
And she was walking by the basketball court and somebody was in the basketball court at 4:30 in the morning and told her she was lucky because this probably could be her last walk. So that was brought up to the police and yeah, I'm not too impressed.
well, I think the takeaway from that was it wasn't reported.
Yeah.
So although they told someone who sits on the police advisory committee, the committee agreed and said that it's not appropriate, but also we need to ensure that it's reported, and even if the police come and no one is still there, they have record and it signals an area that they keep an eye on.
All right, and then we had our PPSA training, date to be determined, so looking for that. And they're dragging their feet on that, aren't they?
No,
Well-
Roger just sent an email out about possible date. That was a mix up with availability of the staff from the province.
Oh, okay.
And then trying to find a date that might work for our committee, but I think we have it
All right,
potentially nailed down for July sometime.
okay.
Actually, I'm just.
All right.
leaving it at the-
Alright, and then staff identified the laws for review for the 5-member subcommittee that we're starting on the police board for bylaw reviews. And we're gonna be meeting next month, I believe.
I think in the next week or so, we just have to get out a poll to those 5 members to see when they might be available.
Okay.
Yep.
Alright, and that's it. For me, any questions, concerns, queries?
Counselor, I have one. The acts of vandalism will be reported to the RCMP.
Mhm.
How does that connect or relate to what community development is looking at with a standing operating procedure around acts of vandalism?
Because if we're reporting it to the RCMP will be coming to say that there's a trouble area. If they're reporting it, if they're going directly to the RCMP with it, then great.
Okay, who's we and who's they?
We. Well, you said the committee.
Well, you said we are reporting it, and then they, if they report it, so who's we?
The
Who's
town,
reporting the acts of violence?
the town, all accident,
I think there was a misunderstanding in your question.
Yeah.
It is the same thing that Katie referred to in
Okay, that
her,
was my question.
Yeah.
Is it?
okay,
is the same thing that we discussed or updated the police advisory board, that community development was working on an SOP, and in the meantime, we agreed that at minimum, all
Okay,
acts of vandalism will be reported. And then community development is working on an internal SOP to streamline that approach, and determine what documentation we need to pass along or how long we retain it and those types of things.
thank you.
So yes, the same item.
okay.
Again, but
I don't know if it comes to Justin, you or the town or whatever, are the RCMP gonna convey that? I know they used to have a member that went in, but I would think that would be simply for Berwick School to say that the RCMP go and say that any violence or vandalism will be reported to the RCMP.
I think a letter to the principal and just letting them know and they can pass it along to the kids. It could be just,
I'm just saying, you know,
Yeah.
when they come and they could assemblies too, but this is, you know, how to use crosswalk safely and about vandalism and that it won't be tolerated and it shouldn't be.
I believe that concern was addressed after our last act when Taylor had reached out to the school. That was the suggestion that the principal had made, is that
Okay.
they were addressing it with the entire.
Great, that is wonderful.
Nice. Okay,
excellent.
all right, anything else on police? So our final one is from Dan Stovall, our report there.
He's thorough.
He's very thorough.
Mhm.
I like that.
Any questions or concerns about that?
You definitely can't tell he doesn't, you definitely can't say he doesn't take his job serious. That's for sure.
Whoever replaces Dan, well, again.
It'll be,
There will not be a person, they have to be any. Okay, so let's move on to mayor's report. I did miss one item I want to mention, June 3rd. We've had an invitation to meet with we being mayors and CIOs to meet at the municipal office to talk about the recreation facility for teens, to get an update. So I'm not sure what the update, we have no further agenda than that, but I look forward to reporting back any update that we might have from that. And then the other, I did want to mention the council survey. I hope everybody received the two emails on that, one from me and then the one with the more fillable survey that you have. And if we could get that back by Friday, we appreciate that, and then we'll put everything together, and Jennifer's met with staff, and we'll put everything together that they've done, and then bit of a report, and we'll kind of go from there with it and changes we see that we need to make and how we've been doing. So it's a bit of a check-in.
I submitted mine today.
Oh,
So
one
that's,
down.
that's a scary thought when I'm the first one getting one in that.
should offer prizes.
Yeah.
Yeah, all right. We couldn't award a prize. That's why we didn't do prizes.
how do you know, never mind, we have a brain fart.
And the other item that, and I mentioned this before, is these, get their information sessions. There's a chance to reach out to people and give them some information, and hopefully we have those that come that will move forward throughout the town and tell people about the wonderful things that we're doing and the update and hearing perhaps the right message and the right news as opposed to wondering what is going on and sending around the wrong message or the wrong news. So the first one that we want to do is Let's Talk Budget on June 10th. We're going to do it at Western Kings Health Society in the room up there. And it's on talking about the budget. So it's a very casual format. Whoever can make it, we hope you can make it. And please spread the word on this as well. We have a poster that will come out.
Maybe tomorrow.
Maybe
We were just finalizing
Yeah,
the,
we're talking.
the location.
It's kind of done, we just had to set those two details, so, spread the word, staff will be there and give some updates on their budget, but also answer questions on budgets that people will have. have coffee and we'll have some sweets and, have a conversation. So I did kind of it's a bit of a series, and so it's in your package and it's on the screen there with the, with some others ones I'm suggesting that we would do. So June 10th is a Let's Talk Budget. September 9th, it's Let's Talk Energy, and we'll talk about where we are with all our various projects with Berwick Electric, and we may have, invite Ray, the general manager from area, to come and talk about some area stuff and just share that with people. I think it's one of the most significant bit of work that we're doing. We're spending a lot of time at it, don't we?
You sure do.
Yes, so it's good to spread the word and talk about that. Then, go further along, we thought we would talk a bit more about development and the planning and the cross the fingers with the finalization of our MPS and how that's gone and going, and just again, an update on that. And then very optimistically, I was hoping that in February, we would have some of our strategic planning done and we would share some of that. So that's a bit of the series for the year. Kind of as I see it, and all subject to change based on how we might want to do it differently. Yeah. Hopefully we'll get started with the one on June 10th and we'll get some feedback and we'll see what kind of response we get and we'll go from there.
Well, the location mover is always gonna be.
Well, we were gonna do it at the fire hall, and the reason we moved it is simply because of the traffic issues. Right.
Cause I thought that's what it was originally. I thought I read that and I thought maybe I misread it.
Yeah, no, just due to the construction, we
Great.
thought it was best to.
Yep.
Not to encourage people to get down there and get caught in that and be frustrated, and so, yeah. Good. Any comments, questions on that? Councilor Swindle.
I just want to thank all the staff for all the hard work you've been doing over the last couple of months, getting caught up on everything and all these reports and all that stuff. Like when I came into this, I had no idea. I'm fully aware and I'm self-aware here. I did not know what you guys do. I wasn't sure of it, but I'm telling you, things you guys do, I'm thoroughly impressed.
So that's,
No, I
thank
don't.
you.
No, I don't.
Thank you, Counselor. That's one of the things that if you want to reflect that in this little update, because that's really important, I think, to share that. That's kind of what we're about and where we're, so thank you for that on behalf of staff. We appreciate that. Somebody does, I think. Okay, so I think we need a motion now to go into camera.
I'll make that motion.
Move, seconder, Stoddard, all those in favor, say aye. Okay, we're gonna go into camera. And those who are fortunate enough to